Proszę Państwa, zaczynamy nasz kolejny pitch, a ja mam wielką przyjemność zaprosić tutaj Granta Blaisdella, który reprezentuje firmę Copernic Space. I Grant na początku, ponieważ pozostajemy w kosmosie po kolonizacji Księżyca podczas ostatniej prezentacji, chciałam Cię zapytać o Wasz projekt. Czy to będzie takie real estate in space, ale z NFT dodatkowo?
Not just real estate. We're connecting using NFTs to connect ownership and access to real assets in space. So we're dealing with actual ownership on the moon. So a little bit connected to the last project, we're actually giving you access to real moon assets.
Great, amazing. So let's delve into it, and the floor is yours.
Great, guys. Yeah, so like I mentioned, the previous project presented you kind of the future of the economy on the moon, of how that's going to look, and we're simulating that right now in this world. What I'm here to show you is how there's solutions through us coming out that give you real access and real ownership in space and even on the moon. With our story, though, just so you know that this isn't something that just, popped into someone's head and they're abstractly trying to shove crypto into space. The story behind Copernic Space starts 3 generations ago with my grandfather, who actually helped build the space program here in Poland in the 60s and 70s. But very, kind of progressive, capitalistic-minded guy. He has these early writings, which we actually have in storage as a family, about the idea of democratizing access to space, because that's a real thing he actually had an issue with. And now that we're entering into this new space economy that's privatizing with thousands of companies, the real urgency exists to provide actual democratized commercial and investment access into the space economy. Important thing, we are not an NFT project. Okay, look at us not through how NFTs have been used up until this point, but how NFTs are going to become a backbone to the digital economies and markets to the future, to where the NFT is not the asset. The NFT is a vehicle with certain features, benefits, and functions for real assets, in this case, in space. So what is space right now? A lot of people just think it's Bezos and Musk and NASA, and that's about it. But that's actually not the case. It's already a $500 billion economy. Most of the markets here that these companies are addressing are 10 billion, 20 billion. This is an immature private market, but it's already worth $500 billion. Our advisor, who's the former director of space commerce for the U.S. Department of Commerce, actually thinks it's going to be $3 trillion by the next decade. And you can see all this pressure both from individual investors and the commercial market. They want to get into space. But how do you get into space right now? Space is A, not accessible, and it's not affordable. So there's no place to connect these 10,000 companies with the millions of investors or individuals that want to get into space, and the hundreds of thousands of companies and growing number of companies that want to have access, ownership, utility, etc. in space. The other thing is that space never went digital, okay? So space as a private market was never mature enough to enter into Web or Web 2 kind of realities. And it's perfectly built for Web 3 tech. When you're dealing with like ownership of physical payload on the moon or satellite data, you don't want intermediaries. You don't want middlemen. You want this to be a peer-to-peer secure experience between each commercial party. At the end of the day, there's no place to even discover what we call space assets, let alone the capability to transact with them, to have utility, and then to have an asset that you can trade further on in the commercial market. And this is creating really one of the biggest opportunities of all time. The issue is, once again, the accessibility and affordability. Right? As of right now, you do have to be a multi-millionaire to actually participate in space. If you're a company and you want to participate in space, you got to go and manually discover each company, contract for a year, spend millions of dollars on that contract, where through Web 3 and through fractionalization and tokenization of assets and investments in space, you can chop down those costs and accessibility so that even people in this room can have real access on the moon, right? And this collision of space and Web 3 is going to be the largest creation of new wealth in mankind's history and the creation of the most valuable market on Earth and in mankind's history. Not just economically, but also in the solutions and benefits it can provide to life here on Earth. And we asked Kevin, who I mentioned is the former director of commerce, space commerce at the U.S. Department of Commerce, why did you join us? After meeting me for about half an hour, he decided to join our team. Why? Because he's been fighting for 20 years to turn the space economy to look towards the commercial market. And he believes that without our platform, that's not going to be a reachable goal, right? And this once again creates this unique opportunity in history. I was too young for the web boom, you know, when the dot-coms were coming out, etc. But what we're about to witness through the space economy and its privatizing and democratization of it is once again the largest new wealth generating events in mankind's history. So what are we? We're a platform that focuses on two things: enabling space companies to tokenize we call their space assets, so their products, their services, satellite data, access to payload on the moon or the International Space Station, to list that on an open marketplace that not only enables the commercial and the retail market to buy and access these space assets, but also to utilize and trade them, right? So we're creating a primary and secondary market for space commerce. The other thing we're trying to solve is investments, right? Commercialization in space is archaic. I already mentioned, you know, one-year contracting, multi-million-dollar contracts. Do you know that there's literally space companies that they upload data into physical hard drives, give it to an employee, have them fly on a plane to the other end of the country and give it to their partner space company to take the data off of it? This is how business processes are in space right now. So there's billions of dollars in value just in digitizing those processes, let alone turning them into assets that commercial companies and you guys can access. The other thing is financing. Financing is also archaic when it comes to space. These are big tickets, it's very exclusive access, and as an investor, you're lucky if you have a liquidity event in 10 years, right? So there's no liquid secondary market when it comes to access to investments in space. And you can take all the VCs, all the governments in the world, combine them and put their money together. It's not enough to fuel the needs of the space economy, right? So you saw this with ICOs in 2007 and 18. You saw this even with like the AMC stock thing through Robinhood last year. If the collective global public come together and put money towards a goal, they will outfund all the VCs in the world combined, just like did with ICOs and just like they did with hedge funds last year with AMC. So what are we? We're the platform that connects space companies and ventures with the commercial market, with individuals and investors. But we want to make this very simple, right? So for these space companies, simple process to tokenize their assets, introduce utilities, list that on a marketplace. On the other side, you have the commercial and the retail market. Easy way, just like you're used to in e-commerce or sort of kind of DeFi trading or Robinhood sort of apps, the capability to come, discover, transact, acquire an asset as an NFT, use it in any way functional, and I'll tell you how we do that with like satellite data, which is really, really great, but then also have a secondary market to trade it, right? So maybe I want to send something to the moon, but I want to sell a portion of what I bought, right? Then there's a market, you can trade that further on in the commercial market. But then there's the utility, right, as well. So not only are we just tokenizing assets, we're allowing to have real usability into it. So let's say that I want to access satellite data, some sort of satellite data license. I buy that license through a satellite company on Copernic Space. That NFT represents my license, but that's not it. Through that NFT, I can access that satellite data or the API itself under that license, right? So providing true utility to these space assets as well. So I mentioned we're starting with two focuses, commercialization and financing. First one, we're coming out with SpaceMart. That's already active on the platform. You can actually test it out for free in our sandbox. This is where space companies tokenize, list, and sell their space assets to the global commercial market. And the cool thing that we're doing with is we're not only enabling the commercial market to access and buy space assets really for the first time, but because of how we use NFTs, we allow them to create their own unique space assets out of it that they can fractionalize and further sell on our marketplace as well. So what does that mean, what I just said? We're going to show that case with really the first big commercial cases on SpaceMart, which is focused on the moon. Right? So in that case, we enable people to either physically or digitally send something to the moon, right? And then they can transform that NFT that represents their ownership of that space to represent the actual product or service it provides that they send to the moon, chop it up, and resell it. It could be a physical item like a shoe, it could be a digital item like a song or software. Right, so these are some of the other sales we're coming out with. We're going to be giving you access to the International Space Station as well. So we have a whole lineup of different types of verticals and sales we're doing over the next year, right? And then here's the financing. End of next year, we're looking to come out with Space Pool. We have to go through different regulatory processes. These are securities, these are investment vehicles, right? But this will be a DeFi app that enables the retail market to invest directly into space ventures and assets in various ways. Right? Business model, simple. We're transactional, low transaction fees, 3% primary, 2% secondary. We get a percentage of every single transaction, but we'll be coming out with data-focused kind of API sales over these years as well. Where are we today? Product works. We have a list of commercial users on it. We did raise our first pre-seed last year. We're raising a seed round right now and have a bunch of committed investors and VCs to that. We're building a community of interested buyers so that we can not just execute these sales and make history with them, but execute them really successfully. Who am I? I'm not random in space. You heard I'm third generation, but I've also been in crypto for 8 years. I've built successful ventures in the space like CoinFirm, which is one of the leading analytics companies in crypto and blockchain. So there's a track history of building real blockchain-based products that are successful in the market. My mother's my co-founder. She's a recognized person in space known as Lady Rocket, Silicon Valley veteran. Some of you in the 90s, you had Compaq or HP computers. That was because of her. She brought the American computer industry to Central Europe and Poland. Philip's worked with me for years at CoinFirm. He's our CTO. And Brian's our bridge between us and the commercial market. So me, Lady Rocket, and Brian, we work on bringing in brands, big commercial companies into the space economy. I mentioned Kevin, so super important person in space, but the rest of our advisory board are not faces. These are all people who do things for us, certain business functions. Some of them are VC investors in Copernic Space, right? Partners, anyone from leaders in Web3 like Polygon to leaders in space. And you can even find us on the NASA website if you want to see what we looked like as a project about 2 years ago. But how can you join? Last but not least, Spaceables. We released a segment on our marketplace just dedicated to space art, collectibles, photography, music. We're going to be bringing gaming into it as well to bring the wider commercial market into something that's not as serious as real space assets and sending things to the moon. And something we're going to be coming out with and testing is our own kind of membership key to the platform that provides you real functions, benefits, removes your transaction fees, etc. So we're going to be launching this soon. And last but not least, you can start signing up to be one of the first people to have real commercial access and ownership on the moon. We have a booth out front. Make sure you follow us on all social medias at Copernic Space. And I want to thank you for your time and hope to see you guys as, let's say, astronauts, but real owners and economic players in what's going to be the most important market in mankind's history, which is space. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. We have 2 more minutes, so perhaps if anyone has questions, then we might just as well use this time.
Any questions?
If nothing comes to mind, you can also ask the questions in Polish. W sensie po polsku też możemy pytać. Grant jak najbardziej.
I can understand it. All right, that's either really bad that no one has questions or it's really good that no one has questions.
It might have been too comprehensive.
No worries. Thank you either way, everybody, for your time and for everybody here for giving me this space.
Thank you very much. Bardzo dziękuję, a Państwa jak zawsze za 5 minut zapraszam na następny film.